Hello, hello, everyone. And I'm so thrilled to have you back on our Living Life Naturally podcast. And of course, I am Lynne Wadsworth, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you here. And now we're a few months into the new year. I'd love to know how you're doing with your goals. So if you would like some help to really rock it with your health this year and really get the results that you want, check in the show notes below. I would love to have a free chat with you and let's see where you're at and see where we can get you to have more energy, to sleep better, to lose more weight. So just hop on a free call. I would love to chat. And of course, we're still in the midst of winter. As you see here in Florida, I am wearing a sweater. It is not getting out of the 50s today, and for us, that's very cold. But my guest on the show today, she's in an even colder place. So I guess I'm thankful it's 50 degrees here. So today I have Dr. Lara May, and she's an advanced practice clinical pharmacist, functional medicine health coach, and master attuned intuitive healer and teacher. She specializes in getting to the root cause of disease through the channel of functional medicine and energy medicine. So after working in emergency rooms and adult acute care for over a decade, she transitioned into integrative health. Due to her struggle with her own health, Lara started studying and practicing Usui and angelic Reiki in 2014, then functional medicine health coaching in 2017. So her passion and her mission is to empower her patients to take an active role in their health so that they can create their health on their terms. So important, especially in today's society with Western medicine. We need to really be active in our own health. So welcome to our podcast, Dr. Lara. We're thrilled to have you here, and do tell our audience where you're joining from.
Thank you. Thank you. I am in Lake Tahoe on the California side. So, yes, cold. We would want more snow. I know. I know not a lot of people can say that at this point in the season of this year, but yeah, so you know, it's winter.
So, in your bio, you talk about through your own health struggles and how you kind of changed your trajectory and went into a more functional medicine and integrative medicine arena, which I just
Mhm.
love. We have so few um, practitioners in that area, and especially in my part of the world, and we need more of them. So, what brought you into this sphere?
So, by the time I reached my 30s, I was having regular chronic migraines. My IBD, which had been diagnosed 23, was just wreaking havoc on my body. And I was starting to exhibit some other signs and symptoms of inflammation, such as glucose intolerance. And I just thought, like I'm way too young to be this sick and to feel this bad all the time. And I wanted answers and I wanted solutions. And I had great practitioners in the Western medicine side that I was working with, but I felt like, especially being a pharmacist, knowing the treatment progressions and options for what I was dealing with, I just felt like I'd reached the limit on the Western
Mm,
medicine side.
mm,
So I started exploring other avenues. And I found through a parallel path of both functional medicine and energy healing and meditation, that that was the solution for me. That really helped turn my entire life and health around. And I felt like this is something that I could do. And with having this deep insight, already being a Western medicine practitioner, that maybe I could help people even on a deeper level with the understanding, when people come to me with diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, hypothyroidism, any of these very common um, acute, but mostly like they turn into chronic conditions, they're often told, well, this is a medicine you're going to have to be on for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. Just get used to it. You can eat healthy and you can exercise more, but this isn't going away for you. And I don't jive with that message. I don't like it. I don't think it's true. And as I've studied more and more about how our thoughts create our life
Mm,
and how we do have the power to heal ourselves, that, you know, it's just doing a real disservice to not only our country, but what we do here in this country has impacts across the entire planet. So, you know, it has such a wide ripple effect that, and if we could just start to change this messaging and re-empower people to know that we create our health, we have that power, and that it just the relationship with your practitioners should not include giving your power away and
mm.
giving up. And, you know, so sort of it in a
Yeah,
nutshell.
yeah, I can totally see that. I am interested to know your thoughts then, since I have suffered since my first child with migraines. So, how did the integrative and energy healing, meditation, etc., affect your migraines?
So, now I essentially am down to like one migraine a year, maybe two if my stress levels are high. So
Mm,
that's the other thing, is figuring out what your triggers are. So if it's migraines, you know, definitely we know they're triggered by
yeah.
something. So figuring out what that is. For me personally, it included an elimination phase of eating and then reintroduction to see how my body reacted to foods. In my practice, I pretty much test all of my clients, regardless of what they're coming to see me for food sensitivities, nutrient deficiencies, and toxic burden load, because those are your three main sources of inflammation. And if we can, number one, like hone in on what foods your body wants to eat in terms of eliminating the inflammation, and figure out what nutrients you're deficient in and replenish those to help your body
Mm, mm,
perform those normal chemical reactions that it needs to for homeostasis. And then if determine if you have a toxic burden load in your body, and start getting rid of that, then that can allow your body to start the natural healing process, because your body wants to be in a state of
mm,
homeostasis. And so it's constantly trying to get back there. And so, and then to finish answering your question, um, I feel like the energetic side of things really helped me to build my consistent self practice, both with stress management, meditation, really evaluating what are my thoughts, what's creating the stress in my life, how am I contributing to this inflammation, and really owning my side of the street within my own health. You know, am I thinking, you know, am I creating stress in my body because of what I'm thinking about my job or my life or my finances or my relationship? And where is my power going? Where am I investing my power, and how am I using that? Am I giving it away and calling myself a victim in some way, shape, or form, or saying these are the areas I don't have power in? Or am I, you know, doing what I now call radical responsibility and stepping in and say, no, I get to decide. Even though the situation might be happening, I don't have to have these thoughts about it that are then perpetuating these feelings and this stress. I have the power to, even though the situation might be the same, I have the power to look at it at a different perspective, have different thoughts and feelings and actions and reactions about it.
mm. And I'm assuming that you have encountered this, that a lot of our aging, if we're aging more than we should do, a lot of that can even come from the impact our thoughts and our mind have on our body.
Yes, and this is from the epigenetic sort of school of thought. So we have the genetic
Mm,
predisposed sort of train of thought, which is, you know, a lot of, again, Western medicine sort of preaches this. Well, you have a family history of this, so this, you know, puts you at higher risk. And or in some cases, even with things like breast cancer or diabetes, they essentially say, well, if you have so much of a family history, we can test for it, and then it pretty much means you're going to get it. Again, that's not something I ascribe to.
Mm.
Yes, you have a potential, but all of us are unique individuals. All of us have unique environments, and part of that environment is our thoughts, because again, our thoughts, everything is energetically connected, and our thoughts and our words carry a vibration, and the cellular reactions in our body react to that vibration. And so that's also part of where this energetic side of things come back in. It's like, what have we been taught or told throughout our ancestry and our culture that we're perpetuating? And really starting to become aware of that and say, oh, well, that doesn't have to be true for me. And so we you again, for things that are chronic but that could be possibly hereditary, there's still going to be a trigger. And so honing back into what is that trigger? Is it something physical, meaning something we're putting into our body that we're eating or that we're exposed to? Is it something more emotional or mental? And if that's the case, okay, well, how can we address it? We have so many tools these days. We have breath work, we have movement practices, there's so many things that can really help our body stay in natural rhythm and in tune, and really bringing down that stress level, because there is a part, obviously, of Western society that is, constantly inundated with, notifications, these sensory perception, bombardment that really, if you look at it historically, humans are not used to that. We're used to quiet time, to rest and digest, to withdrawing from that fight or flight,
Hmm.
and really being able to just relax and be in tune with nature. And so much of our lifestyle these days is just not that. And so
Mm.
now we have to consciously infuse that into our life, ideally daily life if possible. And that really helps, keep us in balance, out of fight or flight, and hopefully out of this inflammation cycle that creates things like migraines or hypertension or diabetes, and all those chronic
Mm.
conditions.
Mm. And then also, when ladies hit that perimenopausal phase, they've got even more what they feel like their body is out of control. Um, how do you address all that midlife change with women? Because there are so
Mhm.
many changes going on. The
For sure.
thyroid can
Yeah.
have more of an involvement, and you've got
Yeah,
hot
absolutely.
flashes and
Yeah. So the one of the things, and that's one of the things I love about functional medicine, is we test. So we don't guess, we test. And unfortunately, that can be one of the things that makes functional medicine a little bit more on the expensive side. But there's a lot of ways now that if you have an HSA or an FSA oper uh, side of your insurance, that you can help pay for it through those avenues. But so we test for it. And the same, I would say, also going back to the migraine question, is one of the things that I do with my migraine patients is I test for their neurotransmitter balance, because so much of migraines are because we have an overexcitation of certain neurotransmitters going on in our brain, that it's triggering this overactivity that presents as this, horrible headache, and all of these other things, the auras and all the other things that go along with it. So similarly with hormones, we test and we see where you are. And also within that, I like to use something called the Dutch test, because that shows me how your body is actually using the different types of estrogen for women. And because how that pathway looks can determine your risk for developing certain cancers, regardless of your genetic predisposition. And so, again, we look at this because We need our bodies to be able to use what's helpful to it and to be able to discard what it doesn't need and what is inflammatory and not helpful. And there are different estrogenic pathways within that. And so if our liver is impaired or overloaded, and a lot of Americans and Westerners are having fatty liver inflammation, even though they're not drinkers or alcoholics. It's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's a big, huge thing that is also reversible because our liver regenerates itself. And so just figuring out again for each person, what's the pathway? How is it functioning? Where can we support it? Maybe if it's clogged or, stopped up, how do we, loosen it, free it up to start moving naturally again? And then I don't personally use hormone replacement in my practice, but I work with other practitioners that do. And depending on where your symptoms are and, what your pathways look like, if that looks like something that could be helpful for you, then I refer out to those colleagues that's their jam. That's what they're really good at. But I also, will refer out to for acupuncture because I think acupuncture is very supportive and healing and powerful. It's just not something that I do, but I have used that for my own healing journey. And what else? So anything that I think that will help a client, if it's not something that I do, I also like help bring, a client's team together because I think we all need a team of practitioners
Mm.
to, help us be the healthiest and happiest that we can be.
Mm. So how much of an impact does our thyroid have on midlife, on menopause for men, for women?
It can have a lot of an impact actually, because our thyroid, when it's not functioning properly, usually most people have a low functioning thyroid if they're going to have a problem. You can have the opposite where it's over functioning, and there's different symptom presentations for both. But what I find is statistically speaking, by the numbers, most of the time it starts under functioning, and then that's where you start to have the weight gain, the hair loss, the very low energy, that even if you're trying to lose weight, it's really hard for you to lose weight. Sometimes even brain fog. And then there can also be digestive symptoms that come along with that. And it's again, you can go to the Western medicine side of things. They'll test you. They might even tell you that your thyroid is normal because usually they do one test called the TSH.
TSH. Mm.
And that really doesn't really tell you how your thyroid is functioning. It doesn't get into the nitty gritty because our thyroid, again, just like our estrogen pathways, are several renditions of one hormone at different stages of their chemical cycle. And depending on where that is, will determine how you feel. And so if you have been, bopping along at this low level, not really functioning at optimum stage for a while, then you might not feel great, but you've gotten used to it. But eventually, uh, I was always taught that it's a three-legged stool. You have your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones, and your adrenal hormones. And, any three-legged stool can't stand if one leg is, not functioning right. If you chop off one leg, then the stool falls over. So similarly with our body and the balance of these three systems. So if that thyroid eventually starts to get, so bad that it just falls out, then the other two trying to compensate because they're all connected will also start to falter, and you'll start to have these other symptoms, whether it's more of adrenal fatigue problems or maybe when you're perimenopausal or menopausal, then maybe those symptoms of going through that phase become really loud and difficult to deal with. And so again, it's about balance. It's about figuring out where you are. And so, again, we test. And when I say we test for Hashimoto. So we test for the actual antibody. And then we test for your T3, T4 reverse. of both of those, the free version of both of those, and your TSH, because we want to see where is the breakdown and also an iodine level, because your thyroid actually could be completely healthy, but you have an iodine deficiency. And if you don't have iodine, that's the cofactor that helps all those conversions. And so you have to have iodine in your system to have a healthy thyroid function. And so it could be something really simple as supplementing with iodine, putting it back into your food, being more conscious about where that iodine is coming from and if you have it available. Or maybe it's something that's more, within the pathway that needs help. So yes, it is important, but it's important that we dive deeper. We don't just do those surface tests that don't really tell us much. And so much of it is symptom association with the testing. So it's not just one or the other, but looking at them both together.
Yeah. It seems as we age, our inflammation factors kind of skyrocket a little bit. And I'm sure that some of that is because of the way that we eat and really a lack of knowledge as to what kind of foods to be eating to help those inflammatory factors.
Well, I think too, there's inflammation causes oxidative stress, and oxidative stress in the body causes cell damage. And all of our cells, like our whole body, essentially is renewed periodically because all of our cells have a life and death cycle. But as we get older, because of our stem cells, that doesn't happen as efficiently as it did when we were younger. And so yes, it's diet for sure, because we want to eat as rich in antioxidants as possible, nutrient rich as possible. But when we've had a lifestyle when we're younger of stress and partying, drinking, smoking, maybe recreational drugs, maybe none of that, but just high stress. Maybe you're a professional that just worked, and traveled for work, and that was your focus. That still creates damage. And yes, your body can correct that. But again, I see it as like a teacup. And, when the teacup gets full, it's overflowing. And the only way to stop it from overflowing is stop pouring water into it, or that liquid or whatever it is, right? And so we have to find a way to stop pouring more oxidative stress and more inflammation into the teacup and allow our bodies to heal. And so providing things that are absolutely anti-inflammatory, and then providing the nutrients and the tools to support that process. So it feels like it's a natural part of aging, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So really our lifestyle truly affects so many pieces of our health. And I know that when we think about meditation, a lot of people think it's a little bit out there, but I know it doesn't, that's not the kind of meditation I do. So it's not just one piece like eating. It's not just one piece like your movement or how you address stress. It's really getting that balance. And I think that when we're in midlife, that seems to be so hard to find a balance for some reason.
Mm-hmm. I think also too that we get to a point where we feel overwhelmed, we're exhausted, and it's almost like we're like, oh, we're just almost like ready to like throw up our hands, throw in the towel, and give up. And that can mean a myriad of things for people depending on, where they are. But meaning like, oh, well, nothing I've tried has worked so far, so I'm just going to eat whatever I want and say, like, screw it, sort of, like, so, but again, like you said, it's not just one thing, it's bringing all the pieces together. And so just carving out 5 minutes for yourself to to breathe with your eyes closed and maybe place your hands on your heart. That's meditation. Tuning into your breath and the beating of your heart. Just that. A simple practice, 5 minutes can do wonders, especially if it's in the middle of your workday and you can find, 5 minutes to go to the restroom and just have, some peace. Um, I would suggest that when you have your lunch breaks at work, try to take part of that to also have that sort of decompression, that tuning in, really, again, like coming back into ourselves, that reconnection with our body, but also like we are energetic spiritual beings having a human experience. And so there's so much of our Western lives that have disconnected our spirit from and our soul from our life and from our body. And so a big part of I think too that's important is bringing that connection back, because with that connection, studies have shown that you are intrinsically happier. Or having that community with your, friends, family, social group, sports activities, community is important too. And
Mm.
there's so many different ways, again, in the culture that we've created that is isolating. But when we have
Yeah.
community, then, it helps us in so many different ways. And so if you're on a healing journey, finding other people that are on a similar journey can help you progress and heal and feel supported and feel that connection. And that's why, I do a lot of one-on-one, but I love group programs too. And so I encourage people, if they're looking for something, maybe look into like a group coaching program, because you'll have that community, that so you won't feel so alone or feel so isolated. And it's the more information and the more people we bring together, the more uh, we learn and we can
Mm.
grow
Mm.
together. And so I think that's important.
Mm. So if people wanted to connect with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
I'm on all the socials, mainly Facebook and Instagram. I do have a TikTok channel as well. But I'm at Dr. Lara May, so DrLaRaMay. My website is drlaramay.com. And so on my website, you'll find a blog, you'll find all my programs too, whether you're looking for a group program or an individual one-on-one. I offer both. The group programs are on the more affordable side, and I can, hook you up with the a la carte testing if you want, or if you want the full on sort of all inclusive program, that is there available for you as well. So I
Awesome.
encourage you just, yeah, to go to my website, drlaramay.com, and peruse it. There's a lot there. I also have my own podcast, so there's lots of information within my podcast. If you're just looking for, you know, more information to consume, there's plenty there.
And what's the name of your podcast?
The podcast is Light Body Radio.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you giving us all of your knowledge on just, I'm sure, the tip of the iceberg in what you do in your practice. But I know this will be very insightful for our audience, and I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I've enjoyed being here, and I hope something that I've said has sort of, spurred that thought train of asking more questions, because I
Mm.
think questions are so valuable and they lead us to answers, right? And so if anybody out there is struggling with any of the things that we touched on, hopefully it's gotten them thinking about the possibility of what is, oh, I can heal myself, or oh, there's someone out there that's willing to dig deeper than just a TSH level, for example. So,
Yes.
yes, there's possibility, there are answers, and healing is definitely a real possibility.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on with me.
thank you, thank you.
You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.